are talking today about purging negative thoughts. Now, over the next few days, we will cover topics of observing your thoughts, the importance of purging them, identifying where they come from, manifesting a better future, recognizing the stories that we tell ourselves, and reframing them, observing our thoughts again, and then finally, daily tips for new thought patterns. So stick with us here for just a minute. And if you're new here, be sure to like, thumbs up, and subscribe. It's our hope that this detox purge may become a way of life for you and your life satisfaction will skyrocket.
Yeah, so let's start by comparing our minds and our thoughts to our bodies and food. It's no brainer that if we fill our bellies with crappy food day in and day out at every meal, we're not going to feel our best. And we're likely not going to look our best either. And that can actually feed into our negative thought patterns and gives us just one more thing to mentally beat ourselves up over. But most of us have already tackled many of our eating issues. For example, I really like the taste of sweets, but I haven't been tempted by a cupcake in years. That doesn't make me a health nut. It just means that I'm aware that if I'm going to indulge, I would rather have a salty pleasure.
Oh, definitely. I hear you. And I totally agree with that. And what I like to say is 80% of how we feel is really determined by what we're putting in. And, our parents used to say things like, you are what you eat. They were right. I used to disagree with the whole term, when I was younger, but now I definitely know they were correct and they were onto something. So I think what you're getting at is that whether we're currently at our ideal physique or not, we have spent plenty of time and effort deciding what's best for our bodies in the area of eating. Now, the same is not likely with our thoughts, though. So we may recognize that we're a glass half full or a glass half empty type, but how much attention do we really pay our passive mind? And what is our passive mind thinking of when we're basically driving on autopilot? Like, are you smiling and thinking of unicorns and rainbows, or are you scowling and thinking about, the perceived rude person that checked you out at, the grocery store?
Oh, Dita, this is a little slightly off topic, but I want to share a couple of fun stories real quick. So I have this friend and we've been manifesting and just kind of examining the stories that we tell ourselves. And we're going to be talking about manifesting in the future videos, so it's not totally off topic. But we had discussed how we could have more fun if we changed the stories that we tell ourselves and the perceptions in any given situation. So I began to text her about how my husband just looked at me so lovingly every time I sat down to read a book when there were actually dirty dishes to be done. And I would just go on and on about how he appreciated my ability to just take care of myself before taking care of others. And we would just giggle about that. And then I was in a better mood by the time I got around to doing the dishes. But an even funnier story is she had stopped by to pick up a pan of brownies and for her son was having a sleepover. And there were these two young guys working and they were speaking to each other in another language. So she didn't know what they were saying. So they're speaking and looking at her and they just kept talking and looking over at her. And so she could have been annoyed, but instead she decided that they were just trying to figure out if she was 30 years old or 40 years old. Now, the funny thing is she had ordered a side of ranch for some wings she was making later. So common sense tells us that, they might have been miffed by the ranch brownie combo, but it was way more fun to imagine that they were like checking her out, and she was all disheveled and had a mask on. And so that's just a preview of the fun that we can have when we begin to examine the stories we tell ourselves. And I'll let you steer us back on topic.
Oh my gosh, I love that. It's an amusing way to really change your mindset, but we're comparing our eating habits to our thought habits. And chances are we've given a ton more thought to what we should be eating rather than what we should be thinking. So here's a question for you. What's more important, what you eat or what you think? Now, really think about that for a moment. We believe that thoughts are things, and if you think about something enough, you can bring it to fruition. And we've even discussed this on other videos and talks that we've done, that if you're going to indulge in eating a delicacy, you should enjoy every moment of it and not feel an ounce of guilt. And we believe that changing your mindset is the first step in changing your life.
Yeah, so here is your first action step. Just begin to pay attention to your passive mind. What are you thinking about when you don't normally realize that you're thinking, like when you're in autopilot, as we talked earlier? So, what percentage of those thoughts are positive? And what percentage of those thoughts are worries or negativity or judgment? And then, what percentage of the negative thoughts are directed at yourself? Now, that last question is kind of tricky because while we often berate ourselves in our mind, any outward tongue lashing when we're thinking about someone else, it's kind of also a reflection of our inner satisfaction.
Yeah. I was at an event one time and I remember it was a mindset makeover. And I remember one of the girls saying, like, I would never talk to another human being the way that I talk to myself in my head. And that was so powerful because if you think about it, she's right. Like, what are you saying to yourself that is so just atrocious that you would never say to a human? Those are the kinds of thoughts that we want to purge and get rid of. And this is the steps and tools that you're going to need to actually make that happen. So we want you to check out our other conversations on purging. We have very simple tools for you that you can hopefully feel more carefree, empowered, healthy, light, far less toxic and overwhelmed. And Lisa and I have enjoyed helping you shift and purge, and we look forward to hearing about your journey through this process. Share what you plan to incorporate moving forward.